Hello guys, welcome back again to the channel. This is Style with Chica, and in this video tutorial I will be sharing with you how I went about the making of this beautiful shift dress with bell sleeves and a built up neckline. If this is something that you'd love to learn, keep on watching. You'll definitely be grabbing something. Like this video if you find it very helpful. Subscribe to this channel for more amazing sewing tutorials. Leave your comments in the comment section. Tell me what you think about this dress, if you'll be trying it out, and you can also leave your questions there. Share this video and let's get started. So for this dress, I'm going to be using about 3 yards of fabric. So depending on your size, you can use 2.5 if you manage it well, depending on the size and the length. 2.5 to 3 yards, even 3.5, depending on your size. So to start sewing, I'm going to fold this material in two, but then because of the way the material is, I'm going to have to fold it on the right side so that when I leave marks you guys can see. But when you're folding yours, fold yours to the wrong side. Okay, so the first thing I'm doing is to fold this material in two, just like you can see me doing. So now I've folded my material all along. So to start marking out, I'm going to draw a straight line at this point that will serve as my starting line for this dress. Alright, so now here I have my starting line. Okay, so from this line now, I'm going to take my shoulder measurements divided by 2. My shoulder measurement for this is 17 inches. I'll divide 17 inches by 2 and I'll leave a mark at this point. So this is my shoulder measurement divided by 2. I just marked out here. So from this point, I'm going to come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. So now that I have this, on this neckline here, I'm going to mark out my neck width. For my neck width, I'm making use of 3 inches. And for my neck depth, I'm making use of 1 inch. Please note that this is the back piece I'm cutting first. I'll make use of the back to cut the front. So I'm just shaping this to get my neckline for my back. So this is what I have. So from this neck point, I'm going to connect to meet my shoulder slope. So now that I've connected to take my shoulder slope, I'm going to mark out my armhole depth and my armhole line. For your armhole line, you take your bust measurement divided by 6. Whatever you get, add 1.5 inches to it and leave a mark at whatever figure that you get. So now this becomes your armhole depth. So placing my tape at this point, I'm going to mark out my bust line. My bust line for this is at 12 inches. Then I'm going to mark out my waistline. My waistline for this is at 17 inches. Then I'm also going to mark out my hip line for this. My hip line for this is at 24.5 inches. And then I'm going to mark out the full length of this. And the full length of this is at 40 inches. So I'm just going to adjust my fabric so you guys can see where I'm marking this. So the full length of my gown is at 40 inches, which is right here. I'll leave a mark at 40 inches. But then I'm also going to have to add sewing allowance. I'm adding an allowance of 2 inches. So making 42 inches. And I'll just go ahead and extend these points with a straight line. This is why you need to mark at your back so that you don't get the front of your fabric dirty. But just for illustration, I'm doing this and I'll end up washing this out. Alright guys, so now this is my armhole line, okay? And this is my bust line, this is my waistline, this is my hip line, and I have my full length line right there. So on my bust line, I will take my bust measurement divided by 4. My bust measurement for this is 40 inches. I'll mark out my bust measurement divided by 4. I'll be adding 2 inches for ease of this gown. It's a shift dress, it's not fitted, and I'll be adding ½ inch for sewing. So in total, everything I'll be adding as allowance to this dress is going to be 2.5 inches. For yours or for whichever, if you want it bigger, smaller, just you can make it just 3 inches, okay? But don't go too much because it's not meant to be too big just because it's a shift dress. So this measurement I have here, I'll also mark it out on my armhole line just like this, and I'm connecting these points. So to get my armhole curve, from this point here at my shoulder, I will connect to this one here, just like I can see, to get my armhole like this. So to give me a better curve, I'll just use this other ruler. So I'm just making use of freehand because this material is moving around a lot and using a ruler is quite difficult. But if you're a beginner, you can make use of a pattern paper if your material moves around too much when you're trying to mark it down. For more safety, you can pin yours down so it doesn't move around so much. So next, I'm going to come to my waistline, and I'm going to take my waist measurement divided by 4 again. And then I'll add the same amount of allowance to it that I added to this top part. Then I'm going to come to my hip line, and I'll take my hip measurement divided by 4, and I'll add the same amount of allowance that I added to the other part too. So now I'll go ahead and connect the points like this. So whatever you have here, you're just going to keep connecting with a curve to the last part of your dress. So this is what I have for my back. I'll go ahead and I'll cut this entire piece out down to the neckline. Alright guys, so now you can see what I have here. I've cut around the neckline all around this point, so I'm just going to fold material again in 2 so we can cut out the front. Alright guys, so now I'm gonna have to fold my fabric in 2 again. So now I'll take my back piece and I'll be placing it on top of this material that I folded. Okay, you can see that I'm turning it this other way around instead of the way we cut it out, because this side is fuller. So I'm just trying to maximize material, so don't get confused about the placement that I'm making right here. Okay, so now because the front has a joining in the middle and a built-up neckline, what I'm going to do is that this base of this material here, let me move this and place this on top so you guys can see clearly. This base of the material here, that's the front back part that I've cut out. I'll come in from the edge by 2.5 inches, and I'll leave a mark. So at this top part, you know, the neckline was actually 3 inches, so I'm just going to remark 2.5 inches right here for an indication. So now this is what I'm going to do. Let me arrange my material back in place. I'll take this 2.5 inches mark that I have now made at this point, and I'll place it on this line, just like you can see me doing. I'll place it on this line, and the top part also, I'll place it on the line. So basically, I'm just trying to make sure that what I have sticking out here is 2.5 inches. Okay, place 2.5 inches on this line right here, on this edge of your material right here. Place 2.5 inches on the line. And once I've done that now, I'll just go ahead and cut out all of this. Alright, so now I've gone ahead to cut this out. I'll take off this top piece, which is my back. So you can see that this front does not have a neckline. So now what I'm going to do is to divide this in 2. Alright guys, so now I've gone ahead to divide this in 2. Let's cut our sleeve. But to get your sleeve, you want to measure what you have around your armhole first. What I have here is about 12 inches, okay? I have folded my material in 2 again for my sleeve. So at this point, I'm drawing out a straight line, which is going to be my starting line. So from this line, the first thing I'm going to do is to mark out my sleeve length. My sleeve length is 24 inches, but I'm going to be adding 2 inches for allowance. That's 26 inches. And I'll mark that out. I'll also draw a straight line across this point. So now I have my starting line and I have my sleeve length. So next I'm going to mark out my biceps line. For your biceps line, you want to come down by about 4 to 5 inches from your starting line. I'm going to make use of 4.5 inches. So from this top point to my biceps line, I'm going to connect with a slanted line like this. So you're connecting from this point to this point, okay? So now remember that when I measured around the armhole, what I had was 12 inches. So I'll come here and I'll mark out 12 inches by placing my tape on the slanted line. And then I'll mark out the midpoint of what I have. So whatever I have, mark out the midpoint. The midpoint of 12 inches is 6. So I'm going to connect this point now with this one with a curve like this. So I'm connecting the curve like this to meet the point where I marked 6 inches. And from this point where I've marked 6 inches, I'll connect to meet this other point where I marked 12 inches with another curve, a lower curve. Like I said, I'm making use of freehand, but you can use your ruler. And if you want to understand how to make this curve better, you can watch my tutorial on how to get a sleeve pattern right here. So now that I've made this curve, this one I'm pointing out, I'm going to make sure that what I have on this line is also 12 inches. By placing my tape this way, I'll measure to where I have 12 inches. So I have 12 inches now because of the curve that has been reduced to this point. So I'll leave a mark at this point. So from this point now, you want to take your round sleeve measurement. So the fullest part of your round sleeve, which is your biceps, you're going to take the measurement you have across that point. For me, what I have is 15 inches. I'll divide 15 inches by 2. It gives me 7.5. And I'll add an allowance of 2 inches because this is a bell sleeve. And when I add 2 inches, it still meets the point where I marked out 12 inches. So I'll come to this part now, and then I'll just mark as much as I want it to be. So as full as you want your bell sleeves to be, just go ahead and mark that. I'll just make sure that it's flowing in this way. Okay, so I'm just going to make use of 15 inches. So now I'll connect this point here to meet this one. So now I've done this. I know it's not very clear. I just connected from this one to this one with a slanted line. I'll make use of my scissors to cut this out, and I'll cut this in 2 places for the 2 sleeves of this. So guys, after going ahead to cut out my pieces and my sleeve, the first thing I want to do is to join my shoulders together. To join your shoulders, you're just going to place the front and the back together, right sides facing each other, just like you can see me doing, and then you're going to join them on 1/2 inch. So now I'm going to have to join on my shoulders, and this is what I have. But when I started joining from here. So remember that it was 2.5 inch that we removed when we were placing the back piece on top of the front, but then it is actually 3 inches that we marked out for our neckline. So if you use the same measurement, you'll notice that you have at least 1/2 inch sticking out at the front part, just like you can see. Okay, so this is my neckline. This is my neckline, but for the front part, at my neckline here, I have 1/2 inch sticking out. I'll just zoom in. All right, so I have 1/2 inch sticking out at this point. What I'm going to do is just to trim it into this side. Okay, don't just cut it out from the armhole, trim it into this part. So just make sure that when you're joining yours, you join from one side to another, like you saw me demonstrating. Alright guys, so now that I've done that, the next thing I'm going to do is to attach my sleeves to my armhole. So for my sleeve, it was folded in 2, and I made a notch at the center part of my sleeve. So that center part of my sleeve goes directly at my shoulder line right here. So I'll just go ahead and join the sleeve all across this point. And after I join the sleeve, I'll just hem in the edge of the sleeve by the amount of allowance that I took. So now I've just gone ahead to attach my sleeves to my armhole right here, and this is what it looks like. Okay, this is what it looks like after I've done that. And I also folded in my edge of my sleeve by the amount of allowance I left, which was 2 inches. So next I'm going to close up the sides. But before I close up the sides, I'm going to attach ropes to the side of my dress. To do that, these are my ropes right here. Okay, so just go ahead and make yours to any length you want. My width I have here is about 2 inches. So I'm going to take my front piece now, and this is my shoulder point of my front piece. Although you can't see it very well, this is my shoulder point. So I'm going to place my tape just at my shoulder. So place your tape at your shoulder and then take down the length that you want your rope to start from. If you want your rope to start from your underbust or your waist. So for this, I want the rope to start around my underbust and my waist, which is just somewhere around this part that you can see that it's slim. Okay, so since my waist is around 17 inches, I'm just going to place it 17 inches like this. Okay, so I'm going to be placing it this way, just like you can see. And I'll go ahead and pin this down. Once I pin this down now, I'll bring my back piece and I'll place it just right on top of my front piece. So now I'm placing these two together, and from my sleeve now, from my sleeve right here. So for my sleeve, after joining it, I actually had some allowance sticking out, like you can see. So I'm just going to trim it out. If you have some sticking out in yours, please trim it out too. So for my sleeve now, I'm going to join these pieces together by 1/2 inch all the way to the very last point of this dress, and I'll do that for both sides. So now after I've gone ahead to join on the sides, you can see what it looks like. These are my ropes on my side. I just joined all the way to the down. So now what's left is my neckline. So to get your neckline, you want to take your 2 shoulder points, you're going to hold it together like this, and you are going to pin down on it, just like you can see me doing to mine. So after pinning on your 2 shoulder points, just arrange this piece together like you can see me doing. All along the middle line, you're going to arrange it. So now once I arrange it, what I'm going to do is that from this down point here, I'm going to measure to the upper part. So I'm measuring till the neckline, okay? And everything I have in total is 46 inches. So now what I'm going to do is to also notch the middle point of this neckline like this. So now I can remove this. And now you can see what my notch looks like at this point. So since I have 46 inches, the next thing I'm going to do is to take this piece of fabric. So you're going to cut out a piece of fabric, okay? And your width of your fabric should just be as much as 7 inches. So the width of this fabric that I have here is 7 inches. And the length, I cut it as up to 50 inches in length. And this is 2 pieces, okay? So 7 inches by width, 50 inches by length. I had 46, but this 50 inches is just for extra allowance. In case I didn't measure properly, I can easily trim it out at the end of the day. So this 50 inches, the first thing I went ahead to do was to sew down the 2 pieces at this top part together, and this is what I have. So now I'm just going to arrange this piece like this again. Now you want to determine how deep you want your neckline to be. For me, I'm just going to be making use of a neck depth of 12 inches. Okay, this neck depth is not like your regular neck depth because it comes from your back, like the middle part of your back, across your neck down to your chest. Okay, so I'm making use of a neck depth of 12 inches. So since I have 12 inches, placing my tape at that starting point like you have seen, I'll come down here and mark 12 inches like this at the midpoint. I do hope you can see this. So now I have 12 inches at the midpoint here. So now that I have 12 inches at the midpoint here, what I'm going to do is to take the midpoint of 7 inches, which is 3.5 right here, and then I'm just going to mark down 3.5 all the way to the base of this fabric. So now I'm going to start from this point. I'll mark this down to the end, then I'll start from this point to sew a straight stitch to join these two pieces together. From this point where I marked out 12 inches, I'll make a straight stitch all the way down. So now I'm just gonna head to make a straight stitch at the middle line. What I'm going to do is to pick these two upper pieces together, and I'll just flip this to the side like this. All right, so by the time you flip it to the side, you see that you already have your neckline forming at this point. I do hope you understand. It was this way, and I just flipped it to the side, and I have my neckline looking like this. All right, so now I'm just going to give all of this a good press so it relaxes very well. So guys, now I'm gonna head to iron this out, and I just trimmed along the edges to make it even more neater. So for this neckline, please note that I came down by a little bit more. That's 3 inches. So in total, this neckline now is 15 inches, because when I tested it, it was a little bit too high for me, so I thought that it would be high for my clients, and I just decided to bring it down. So now I'm just going to join this to the neckline of the dress, and this is how you do it. So from this middle point here where you have your joining, you want to take the middle points of the gown which you notched, and then you're just going to pin them together like you can see me doing. So now from this midpoint of the neckline, I'll start from here, and I'll sew this piece and the front piece together. So I'm going to join on it, just like you can see me demonstrating to you. I'll join on it, and I'll do the same thing to the other side. So I know according to the inspo picture, this one was a different material. If you want to use a different material for yours, you can do that, and it's very quite optional. So I'm just going to go ahead and sew down this piece now to my material, and I'll do that for both sides of the neckline. So now I'm just gonna head to totally join this piece to the center, and this is what it's looking like. Okay, this is what it's looking like. I joined it all the way to the base of the dress. It may not be showing very well just because it's the same color, but here it is along the middle line. All right, so remember that I cut this to be longer than the initial length that we needed. So at this point now, I'm just going to trim off the excess that I have here. And to finish up this dress, I'll hem in the edge of this dress by the amount of allowance that I took when I was drafting the pattern. So now I've folded in the hem of the dress. I did that all around to the front, and I gave this a very good press. I gave all of this dress a good press, and this is basically all I have for this dress. I do hope you found this tutorial very helpful. If you did, don't forget to leave a like. Subscribe to this channel for more amazing content. You can tell me what you think about this in the comment section. Also ask your questions in the comment section, and I'll be seeing you in my next video. Bye guys.